Demetrius and a splash of Fanta from the field of 68. John Fanta here alongside the Syracuse Orange standout, Demetrius Nichols. It is Wednesday, January 27th, 2021. And today's guest is one of the best stories in college basketball. That's what he's been able to form in New Jersey. Ron Harper Jr. of the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, who are coming off a game that they needed and they got at Indiana, snapping a 5-game skid. Harper at a double-double. Demetrius, we've been impressed by Harper from the start of the season. It is clear that he's taken a huge leap in his third year in Piscataway, and he's a big reason why the Scarlet Knights were able to snap that skid, and you can sense that his leadership oozes through the program.
Thank God, because, they lost 5 in a row, and him having that double-double, they needed every point, every rebound that he could contribute, and he has to understand that he has to be that guy. He has to, score plus 20 points, get double digits in rebounds for his team to get a chance to win against, especially against really, really good teams. And it seems like they turned that corner after beating Indiana. Let's see what's going to happen next week versus Michigan State, who just beat them a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, Michigan State on Thursday, and then they've got Northwestern this weekend. They're 4-6 in conference play. If you go 10-10 in this Big Ten, you're going to make it. You're going to make the NCAA tournament. There's no question about it. And I think that the Scarlet Knights are going to find their way into the NCAA tournament. And here's why. Harper and Geo Baker. And I think that Geo Baker, as much as Harper's been the guy, I think that Geo Baker is so critical and equally critical to that dynamic duo. They've got to be at their best for this Rutgers team to make the dance floor. I think that they will be. And I think that Miles Johnson has been a guy that down in the paint has done a very nice job against other guys on the interior, did a very good job against Indiana, and has really come on and has taken on that assignment that he's going to be that stopper inside. This is a Rutgers team that they got back to who they are against Indiana. They played a complete game, and you had Baker and Harper really coexisting well on the offensive end of the floor. When you have two players that are that skilled, and you defend and rebound the way that Steve Pikiell's teams defend and rebound, you're going to be okay. You're going to have a chance on any given night, and you're going to have a chance wherever you're seated on the dance floor. So I do think that they're going to make the NCAA tournament. I don't have doubts about that, even though they're 4-6 in their league. They could use a win over Michigan State because I think that they're a better team than Northwestern, and all of a sudden you get back to 500 and you're looking pretty, especially in a league this hard. But this is a really fascinating story in college hoops because it has been a long time. So I'm a Browns fan. I'm tired of hearing about the droughts, like the playoff droughts. I'm sure Rutgers fans are tired of hearing 3 decades. I think it's going to end, and I think it's a huge credit to Steve Pikiell, who has done an amazing job with this program.
And I think it has ended. They won plus 20 games last year. They're going to probably do it this year again. They have that potential to, potentially go deep into the tournament. I'm not sure how deep. Maybe Sweet 16, maybe, but it all depends on Ron Harper Jr. and Geo Baker. Can those guys be efficient every single night? And we've seen those games when they lost, those guys were up and down. There were games when Ron Harper had 3 points, 4 points, 5 points. He can't have those type of nights on this team if they want to be successful. He has to be on every single night when he steps out on that court. So I think this week is going to be a big challenge for them. I think they have 2 big tests, and we'll see how far they can take this thing.
Well, here's the thing about Ron Harper Jr. He embodies everything that Rutgers basketball is about. This is one of the best conversations that we've done. Some memories of Kobe Bryant, who passed away a year ago this week. What it was like to be coached by his mother. Everybody knows Ron Harper Sr., but how about his mother, who's a fantastic woman, Maria Harper? We'll talk to him about that. Really powerful stuff here about basketball and life and that journey. Here he is now, Ron Harper Jr., the Scarlet Knights. It is great to be joined by the Rutgers Junior star, Ron Harper Jr., on Demetrius and a Splash of Fanta this week. Ron, thanks so much for taking the time with us today. We were looking at your journey and just thinking about your journey. Back in 2017, when you were visiting the Rutgers University campus, you were not receiving a ton of interest from power conference schools across the country. I want to take us back to that moment when you visited Rutgers and you and your mom, Maria, were driving back from that visit. What did you tell your mom?
I told my mom that I had a great unofficial visit here at Rutgers, and, it was everything I could have asked for in a school. And, a Power 5 school was taking a chance on me in the best conference in America, and I was just more than grateful to be even given the opportunity. And, I loved it here. I thought Coach Pegel and the coaching staff's vision was great for the future. I thought we had a lot of good pieces of the puzzle to come and play, and I was excited for the future, and I just wanted to be a part of it.
What was it like growing up in Paterson, New Jersey? I was one of those guys who were in and out of New Jersey because I played for the Tim Thomas Players that day in AAU. What was it like for you growing up in Paterson, New Jersey?
Growing up in Paterson and West Paterson until I was about like 7 or 8, it was like, I don't know, you see a lot of stuff that you don't want to see at a young age. I don't really talk about it much, but like, it's just you got to be careful, you got to find an outlet if you don't want to get caught up in the wrong thing, and caught up with the wrong people. That outlet for me was basketball at a young age. My mom kept me very engaged in basketball, and my grandparents even staying the night at their house sometimes. But growing up in Paterson, you meet a lot of talents growing up, and you stay in touch. Some of them go down the wrong path, and some of them do something great with their lives, and that's just the beauty and the struggle. Being from there, that little inner city. Some people don't ever make it out. It's sad, but that's something you just gotta live with.
I know all about Paterson. That's why I asked. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Those people that you met, when you say those people that shine and make it out and have those great stories, anybody that comes to mind that you've always looked up to?
Definitely Tim Thomas. Like Demetrius said, he played for the Tim Thomas Players. He's kind of like the gold standard in Paterson. He made it out to become something bigger than just what he was in Paterson. And a lot of young kids in the inner city look up to him as a basketball player, but also as a person.
And some great stuff. You and your Scarlet Knights coming off a great win at Indiana. Ron, this program was on the cusp of going to the big dance last year. Of course, the tournament doesn't happen, and just I could feel it from all the way from Piscataway, just how tough that was, because everybody was so hungry to see Rutgers back in the NCAA tournament. What is it about this period for Rutgers basketball, and how much do you just put that at front and center to take this program to a place that it hasn't been in 3 decades?
Growing up, my mom always told me one thing. She always told me, wherever I go, I'm going to become a winner, and I'm going to become a winner one way or another. And that's just something that really sticks with me. And if I didn't think Rutgers was going to be a winning program, like that never even came across my mind. When I came on my visit, I knew Rutgers was on the rise to the top real soon. Coach Peichel and the coaching staff had a great vision. We had great players, a lot of talent, and the recruiting classes coming in. But last year, like you said, we were right there, going to make the big dance, and then COVID shut the season down. You got to live with it. You live and you learn. And the beautiful thing about COVID shutting our season down is it made a bunch of guys that love basketball love it even more. Being at Rutgers, we haven't made the tournament since '91, and we're real hungry, and we're looking to break a 30-year streak now. But all the guys here, we feel like we did it already, and we feel like we can do it again. So that mentality, we just got hungry, and, we went through a little bit of a skid. We slipped up a little bit, but we're ready to pick up where we left off.
what was the conversation like between you and the coach about your role for this year? You played well last year, but this year it seems like you're more of the main guy, the go-to guy, the leader guy.
Mm-hmm.
What was the conversation like between you and the coaches on what he wanted to see from you, and what do you want to see out of yourself this year?
Coach Peichel made it very clear to me at the beginning of the year that he wants me to be a leader on and off the court. And, that's something I take pride in, trying to get along with each and every guy in the locker room in a different way. And, just being a leader and just setting the example on the court and off the court, being a leader for those young guys, because the young guys look up to us. And even some of the guys at your age, you just got to always set the right example. And Coach made it very clear to me, like, no matter how many minutes I play, no matter how many points, rebounds, assists I got, to always bring that same energy as a leader to the court. And that's something I really take pride in.
Take us inside the locker room when you go through the skid that you had, 5 straight to start off January? What happened? What was said? What was done from what you could tell us?
I mean, you can turn on any of the 5 tapes. You know, the first 2 games were kind of in it, but like the last 3, it was kind of a blowout essentially. Like the guys were frustrated. I was frustrated. Coaches were frustrated. We were kind of all like lost. Like we didn't know what to do. We started to doubt ourselves sometimes. You know, we just had a lot of meetings, a lot of team meetings, and we just talked to each other about like what those doubts was and what we needed to do to get back on the winning track, to get back on the right track. And we just, you know, when adversity hits, you got to get tougher. And, you know, we got softer a little bit, but in those team meetings, we made sure we made it vocal to each other that no matter what, we got to be consistent. And Paul Mulcahy said it best. He said, if we're consistent when we're up 10, we got to be consistent when we're down 5, 10, 15. You know, if you're consistent throughout the whole game, consistent throughout the whole season, it's hard to have an unsuccessful season. And that's something we had trouble learning, but I feel like that we know it now. And, you know, consistency just has to be a part of us from now on.
So the first 5 games, like John said, you guys top 15 team. You was averaging 23 points per game. Now you're down to 18, 6 rebounds and almost 2 assists. What has changed defensively? How has teams adjusted to you offensively? Because you're very, very efficient and you pick your spots. Do you see a difference with how teams are guarding you in 2021?
Yeah, I definitely see difference. At the beginning of the year, you know, everybody had 6-8 months to prepare for the season, so the scouting report's not out. But I get out to a hot start where I'm shooting over 50 from 3, and you know, teams are gonna just tell their team just push me off the 3-point line, just run at me as fast as you can. And you know, I definitely see a difference whenever my play is called. Every team knows it. You know, it's just a matter of fact of making the right play and finding my teammates because I know they're gonna make the right play. And in 2021, I just saw a huge change in how teams were guarding me. You know, a lot of teams just load up in their help when I have the ball. And, you know, it's just, like I said, it's just a matter of fact of getting your teammates the ball and trusting them. And, you know, like you said, I have to pick my spots at the right time in the right place. And I think I'm doing a good job at that.
So like, do you watch film on those games that you don't play as well as you want to? You know, so how are you getting better with this new dynamic defensively, how teams are just not all focusing on you, but it's different. So how are you getting better, taking that next step from watching film, getting extra shots up? What are you doing to change the narrative to be that go-to guy every single night?
I think it's an accumulation of everything, you know, getting in the gym, putting up shots, watching film with Coach Peichel. You know, Coach Peichel told me that if guys want to run at me at the 3-point line, we just have to get to the basket more and get to the foul line a lot more. And watching film with him and like watching my shots and watching sometimes where I might get over aggressive because that play would have been there at the beginning of the year, but it's not there now. You understand? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like just making the right play, just picking my spots, you know, knowing the defense is vulnerable for me to get into my spots, for me to get a basket, for me to get an assist.
That pull-up game, man. You got to work on that pull-up game.
Yeah, that 15 for that mid-range game, it's a lost start. You got to get that back.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big thing because I feel like it's, you know, when you're watching the game, the broadcaster says the same old thing of foul up 3, like the most common phrase is a mid-range is a lost art. But like everything, it's like the cycle of life, Ron, right? That it just comes back.
Mm-hmm. You know, the mid-range, yeah, like you said, like the announcers, commentators, people around the basketball world claim it's a lost art. But, you know, you see guys at the next level that perfected that mid-range game. Like Paul George gets to his one dribble pull-up fantastically. DeMar DeRozan makes his living from the mid-range and hit some like threes. But, you know, that mid-range game is like, people say it's a lost art, but I just think people stop trusting it. You know, you see people fall in love with the 3, and I'm victim. A lot of basketball players are victim of it, but it's just like back to the basics, you know?
Yeah. So speaking of mid-range game and going to the next level, Kobe Bryant is one of my favorite players. We've done some digging and see that he's one of your favorite players. Where were you when he passed away?
Yeah, I was just thinking about this yesterday. I remember it was a weekend. I think it was maybe a Saturday or Friday, and we played Purdue.
Yeah.
The next day or the day after that. It was the next day. We played Purdue the next day, and I'm coming up the elevator after a lift, after we just had practice, and I'm walking to the locker room, and Jacob Young's to the locker to the right of me, and he looks at me, he's like, "Dang, Harp, Kobe just died, and I was like, what? He was like, he just got into a helicopter accident, and I was like, who reported it? And he was like, TMZ, but there's a bunch of verified accounts reporting now, and I was like, man, no way this is true. I kind of went into shock, and I got into the film room, and Coach Brandon Knight was on his phone. He just got the alert, and he's probably getting a bunch of texts and everybody, and he's like, yo, Kobe just died in a helicopter crash, and all the guys in the room just went silent. And I sit in the front row, like next to Paul McKay, and I was just like, and we just went on with film, and like during film, like I remember I probably didn't watch like a single clip. I was just sitting there like staring at the wall with a blank face. Like I didn't know if it was true. I didn't know what to believe. Like I was hoping that once I got out of film, I checked my phone and it was a fake report. But and then I get out of film, I check my phone, and it's like one of your worst nightmares coming true. And my mom texted me, and my dad texted me, and my dad was like, I'm so sorry, son, Kobe just passed away. And it was such a heartbreaking moment for me. It was like something I'll never forget. Like I always remember where exactly I was, what place, when it happened, and when I found out, and how I felt. And that feeling just resonates with me to today.
Of that being, with what happened last year, it left all of us speechless.
Mm-hmm.
I think if there is anything that you could ever take out of a situation, like one thing that I've seen this week is just the outpouring of tributes again. And when he died, there was that combination of shock, but trying to remember him. And there was so much happening at one time, Ron, that I think we've all seen this week. Like there's just been so much, it's been a lot more rewarding to see the celebration of who he was, even more, as sad as it is to this day. You don't forget it. But I'm curious, I mean, when you think about how much he meant to you and the inspiring factor that he gave you as a player, as a person, what comes to mind?
Sometimes I just catch myself in a situation, and like during that 5-game skid, it was more prevalent than ever. I would often ask myself, like, what would Kobe do? Like, how would he talk to his team? Like, how would he make the best out of the situation? How would he bounce back? And, like I took it to heart. We couldn't buy a win for a little bit, but that one at Indiana, it just felt great. Like I just kept asking myself, what would Kobe do? How would he lead this team? The second half, I don't think I got a sub once. Now I was just out there trying to like pour my heart out. I didn't care if a shot went in, a shot went out. I was always going to defend. I was always going to rebound. I was always going to run hard, and I was always going to have my teammates back. And, simple things like that, like reflecting off Kobe's personality, like what he would have done, like how he treated people. It's just a big part of like who I am. When the struggle happened in January, I always bring it back to how Kobe responded.
Did you meet him ever?
Yeah, I remember the first time I met him. I was like, I forget how old I was, like around the age like 7 and 8. The Knicks were playing the Lakers at MSG, and my dad took me to go see him in New York City. And I was nervous. I was so nervous. I was a little kid, and this was like Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, my era. Like one of the greatest to ever do it. And him and my dad are just sitting there talking, and I'm just kind of like hiding behind like my dad. Like they're just standing up talking. I'm like hiding behind my dad. And he called me over. He was like, Junior, come here. He was like, don't be afraid. He's like, we're family. And he like dapped me up. And he was like, I'll just never forget that moment. And I remember one thing he told me. He was like, no matter what, whenever you touch the basketball, I want you to shoot it, and then we'll teach you how to pass later. And then,
Love it.
and then 10 years later, I see him at the Nike Academy. This was right before my senior year. Yeah. And he came to the academy one day, and he talked to us, and me and my dad were talking to him after, and he was like, do you remember what I told you like 10 years ago? And then at the moment I was like, I didn't know what he was talking about. And he was like, I told you, always shoot the ball. We'll teach you how to pass later. And it was just like, it was a funny moment. It was just like so Kobe,
Yeah, no, that's that mama mentality. So my mama mentality, I know when I was a player at Syracuse, before every game, 10 minutes before the game starts, I would go in the locker room and I would read articles of Kobe.
Mm-hmm.
He got prepared for the game, what he did, what he ate, what was his mentality going into the game, and that would get me going. That was my way of showing my mama mentality. How do you show your mama mentality, whether it's in practice or in the games, or even in the locker room? What is your mentality?
I feel like my mom mentality in the locker room, I'm always trying to be a leader. Like no matter what the score is, no matter how many points I got, it's like I'm always trying to be a leader. I'm always trying to make the guys know that, it's only us in this room and we believe in each other and we can beat whoever we want to on any given day. We just got to play together and play as one unit. That's where I like channel my mama mentality as a leader. Like in the huddles on the court, like I'm very vocal. Like I'm always trying to make sure guys are up. Even if a guy's having a bad game, he didn't play as much as he wanted. He came out too early. I'm just trying to make sure he knows that, like, I trust him and I have his back. And, like, no matter what he does, like, I'm always going to have his back. And that's where I feel like I channel my mama mentality. Kobe was a great leader on the court. He was a great player, shot maker, but above everything, he made the people around him better. And, that's what I just try to do every day.
That's really, really powerful stuff there, Ron. And that's exactly, what you've done this year for your team. We have some questions here that have come in from fans, and I think it's interesting because I definitely want to talk about both of your parents. I know you've talked a lot about your mom, and I want to get back to her in a moment, but we had someone say, hey, Ron Harper Sr. was one of my favorite Cleveland Cavaliers. How is your dad doing? And tell us something that maybe people don't know about you and your father.
My dad's doing great. He's always texting me about the games. He always watches every one of them. But some of the people might not know about my dad is that he's a really laid-back basketball guy. Like, people expect my dad to text me, like, paragraphs of what I need to do better, what I need to work on. But good game, he'll text me, level head, son, back to work tomorrow. Bad game, he'll text me, extra shooting, get the shot up, the next one is going to go in. So he's really laid back with that type of stuff. And people, like, expect him to be, like, this dad coach, but like he's not that at all. Like he gives me space when it comes to basketball. And, I appreciate that because like he knows the pressure and like he's felt it before. And like with having a father of that high profile, he understands what it brings on my life. So he just tries to be a dad first and then the basketball coach second.
Can you beat your pops now? That's what I want to know. Can you beat him?
Yes.
Oh, easily like that? Like that's how. Yes. No thought about it. You just
yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right.
About 12 yeses deep.
Yeah, a lot of yeses.
What do you think what do you think his best advice he gave to you as both as a son and as a basketball player? What advice did your dad give you on and off the basketball court?
I guess we'll start on the court. My dad, he always told me, no matter what, play the next possession. Like, so no matter if I turn the ball over, no matter if I shoot a bad shot, no matter if I miss a shot, make a mistake, always play the next possession because you can't get the last one back, and that's in the past. Then as a person, he always taught me just to be good and to be loyal to the ones that are loyal to you. Like, I know it's like a broad statement, but basically what he's just meaning is just have the people's back who have yours, and those people in your circle, those people in your tight circle, you always got to take care of them through thick and thin, whether you're mad at them, upset with them, not having a good day. Those people around you are always going to get you to the next one.
Let's turn to your mom. She coached you, right?
Yeah.
So what was that like? Because I think that has to be one of the more unique things about you and your development as a player and a person. It's not many times that someone is getting coached by mom.
Yeah, I remember when you asked me about the great people that come out of Patterson, I think of Tim Thomas, but obviously I think of my mother too. Her family moved from the Manila, Philippines, and being one of the richest families there to moving to Patterson, New Jersey, and being dirt poor. My mom had every opportunity to quit and every opportunity to turn her back on the world, and she faces adversity with a smile on her face every day. And every day she's fighting. And me and her talk every day about her struggles and her battles. And I have them too. And she always tells me that we're always going to get through it. And she's always going to have my back. And being coached by her was one roller coaster journey, let me tell you. Like, I remember in middle school or early high school, I don't remember. It seems like so long ago now that I'm a junior in college. But I told her that she can't come to my games anymore because she puts too much pressure on me. And she took it the wrong way, and we fought about it. And then we ended up going to see a sports psychologist about our relationship on the basketball court and off the basketball court. That sports psychologist really helped us to really like open our minds to how we feel about each other in certain moments, and like how to pick when to talk to each other about like basketball or when just being a mother or just being a son. she pushes me to be my best self every day, and like that's my motivation. And she always makes sure I'm doing the right thing, I'm eating the right stuff, I'm always getting in the gym. But she cares more about me than basketball, and than I could ever imagine. So all the gratitude in the world goes out to her. And her being my coach, her being my mom, she's always been the best I've ever had.
Nice.
I love that. That's what it's all about. Another thing, during quarantine, you and your teammate, Geo Baker, he comes and lives with you in Bergen County for about a month and change or so. Were you able to sneak onto a court? Like, what was that period like? Tell us a story.
So I remember it. I was trying to figure out if anybody needed to come home with me because the season just ended so quick. And Gio was like, I'll come back to Bergen County with you. And then Oscar Palmquist, he was a redshirt freshman now, but he was a freshman last year. He came early. He couldn't get back to Sweden because he couldn't leave the country. So he was like, yeah, I'm going to come home with you too. So we were all there for like a month and a half. And, it was us three. And then my half-brother, Jordan Cook Harper, came from Sacramento State. He came to Jersey. And then it was us four, and we worked out at this gym with my two friends, Marcellus Erlington, Matt Harazmi. Celis goes to St. John's, Matt goes to Marist, both on the basketball team, and we got each other better every day. COVID was such like a touchy time, such a hard time. Like sometimes you couldn't get in the gym, sometimes the gym got shut down, and those days we just had to make what we had. So I remember in my garage, whenever we didn't have basketball or anything, I had dumbbells that I got from our strength and conditioning coach, Dave Van Dyke. And I had this big cardboard box, and I just used to write workouts on it. And it used to just be like Monday, Tuesday. And I used to do those workouts every day, and Oscar and Gio would join me. But COVID was such a trying time, It was so hard to get on the court sometimes. It was so hard to have your body feel right because you're only getting on the court. All that treatment stuff isn't there like it used to be. So keeping yourself hydrated is more important as ever. But I remember the one story that just sticks out to me. I remember one time we got in the gym for the first time a week and a half, and we were all just so tired, we were gassed. And then we go back to my house, and Oscar's like, dang, he's like, Ron, I'm so out of shape, I need to go for a run. And he goes for a run, and literally 2 minutes after he leaves, it starts pouring rain. So I'm just sitting at the kitchen table. I'm like, he's gonna come back any second, right? And it's 30 minutes, and this dude comes back in my house, and he's drenched from head to toe. His clothes are soaked, and he's just dripping on my floor. He's like, Ron, can you get me a towel? And I was like, yo, this guy's unbelievable. His phone is soaked, everything. But that was just COVID. We were just doing anything it took to get some work and to get better.
That passion, man, that passion. Speaking of that passion and that why, what is your why? Why do you love the game? Why do you play the game? Who do you play the game for? What does the game of basketball mean to Ron Harper Jr.?
The game of basketball gives me a lot of opportunity, and I'm always grateful for it. It's putting me through school right now. But I also use the game of basketball to represent the people that sacrificed so much for me growing up. My mother, my father, my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles, the list just goes on and on. People that drove me an hour to basketball practice, people that took me home from basketball practice at 10 p.m. after work, people that took me to the gym before they went to work, people that sacrificed to put food on the table. And, I think ultimately my why is my family. Every time I go out there, I'm a representation of my family. I'm a representation of the Harper family and my mom's side, the Pizzero family. And I just want to represent us in the best way because those people sacrificed for me. Those people put it all on the line for me to be in the place that I am, and I would be doing them an injustice if I left anything on the table.
If I was an NBA scout and I asked you, what is your greatest weakness, what would that be?
My greatest weakness. I think my greatest weakness is how hard I am on myself. Sometimes I'll be out there and I'll miss a shot or I'll do something and I'm like, I could have done this way, the other way, and I'll just be too hard on myself sometimes. And it's definitely something.
Advice, man. You gotta take your dad's advice, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's always what I think about, the next possession. But sometimes I'm just too hard on myself. But sometimes when I'm too hard on myself, it motivates me to go harder. So sometimes it works out for me in the long scheme of things.
That's some great stuff, Ron. We have a couple other questions here. This comes from Ben. I've heard of this place. I would imagine you have too. He asks, have you tried Stuff Your Face in New Brunswick?
Yes, I have. I forget what they're known. They're known for there's so many good food places out here. They're known for strombolis, I think. And those strombolis are like magnificent. I remember my old teammate Joey Downs brought me there last year. You know, I'd never had a stromboli. Every time I went there, I got like wings or something.
Yeah.
And he got me a stromboli, and I was like, and we went back to his house and we ate it, and I was like, dang, I've been like sleeping on this place since I've been here. Like I've only had it like such a handful of times, but it's like it's so good, and like the hype is real. And like everybody, like talking about Rutgers, like if anybody ever visited Rutgers, they always tell me they've been to Stuff Your Face, like no matter who it is.
What's your spot in Piscataway or near campus? Like what is your go-to spot?
I have to go with Taqueria. I love Taqueria. Taqueria is so good. Their Mexican street corn is phenomenal. Their quesadillas are so good. Their burritos. That's definitely Taqueria on Houston Ave is definitely my favorite spot on campus.
What are you watching on Netflix this season in this COVID times? What are you watching when you're not at practice?
I just watched this show on Netflix, this first part of the show, and I think it's probably the best show I've ever watched on Netflix. It's called Lupin. It's in French, but you got to put like the English, like the English subtitles on, the English voice on, so it like speaks in English. It's just the show's phenomenal. It's so good. Me and my girlfriend watch it, and like we flew through it. There's only like 5 or 6 episodes in the first part, and it's like it's leaving me like itching for the second part. Like I just can't wait till it comes out.
Where do you see yourself 6 months from now?
6 months from now, I see myself looking back on having a historic season here at Rutgers, and celebrating that day by day, and then just taking it, and just like I said, taking it day by day. 6 months from now, a lot of things could happen. I could have an option to leave or to stay, but I never think about any of that. I'm just focused on where my feet are right now, and that's trying to win a Big Ten championship, trying to get these guys to the NCAA tournament, try to have a great historic season that the Rutgers fans deserve and more we deserve.
Ron Harper Jr., a great conversation, man. Thanks so much for taking the time, and best of luck here on that road to March, taking the Scarlet Knights back to a place that they have not been in 3 decades. That drought, it's on the cusp of ending, and you're a huge, huge reason for it. Congrats on the success. Good luck going forward, man.
Thank you guys for having me.
Good luck, young fella.
Just great stuff from Ron Harper. I thoroughly enjoyed that conversation, man.
Great kid, man. You can tell he's humble, but he's hungry, and he's taking advantage of himself being a leader on this team and really seeing how far he could lead this team. And he talked about leadership, and he knows that he has to be that guy every single night. And we'll see how he could finish out the end of the season.
Yeah, we will. This is going to be a really interesting team to watch going forward. Let's get to our Nickel Dimers, where we look at the best in college basketball as of late and talk some storylines here. So your team of the week, Demetrius Nichols, who you got?
Team of the week is number 8, Virginia. They are 11-2 overall.
Here they come.
We know what their calling card is. They're going to play defense. They're going to be in your face, man to man. They're going to get in the passing lane, block shots. You know what they're going to do defensively. But now, we talked about this in the beginning stages of this year, what they were going to do offensively. And what they're doing offensively is amazing. They're shooting close to 40% from the 3, plus 50% from the 2. This team is putting the pieces together, and it seems like they're gelling at the right time. Against Syracuse, they shot 45% from the 3. We talked about who is going to be that guy, who is going to step up to be that offensive threat, and they have 3 guys. They have Sam Hauser, who had 21 points against Syracuse. He was 7 for 13 from the 3. Jay Huff had a career night, 21 and 12. And Ki Clark, which is the little engine that gets into the paint, find guys for lobs, creating the defense to suck in and get wide open shots for their shooters. If this team continues to put things together, if they can play offense the same way they play defense, this team can actually win a national championship.
It could. Yeah, you're right. And I think that we gave a judgment too early too early on Virginia. We formed an opinion on them early in the season. I'm guilty of it. They lost to San Francisco. Then they took another loss that had me a little bit puzzled, and I thought to myself, I don't know if this is the Virginia team that we thought could be a Final Four caliber squad. Well, they look every bit the part of it now. And maybe it's an early COVID pause combined with those losses that had us writing them away. But you just said it, between Huff and Sam Hauser. They can strike from the perimeter and do it on a consistent basis that we haven't seen Virginia teams always do. We saw it a couple years ago when they won the national championship, and it bears noting they're still the reigning national champions, between Ty Jerome and Kyle Guy. I mean, those kids hit some big-time shots. Virginia has that. They've got that type of ability. And I think, to your point on Kihei Clark, what he does to create for others that's the game changer. You can't rely on him to do all the scoring or too much scoring. Take that off of him and find those shot makers. That's where Clark has success. So I love that they're your team of the week, because I do think that we formed an opinion on Virginia too early. I booked them. I sent them to jail. I sent them to college basketball jail. They're out. Okay, they get out of jail card, and they shouldn't even been there in the first place, because they are the best team in the ACC.
And when you play defense the way they play defense, you always have a chance to win.
You do.
But it's the experience. They still have guys on this team who helped them win a championship 24 months ago. You know, there's certain
right. And the offense, and the fact that you could say, okay, when there's 4 minutes to go and it's tied up at 62, like, how are they going to be able to generate high quality shots? Mm-hmm. And they're getting good looks, and they have shooters. And Sam Hauser's been doing it throughout his career. He did it at Marquette. When he left Marquette, that was a terrible blow to Marquette. You know, it was the beginning of where Marquette is now. They lost the Hauser brothers, Sam and Joey, and it was brutal. And now Sam Hauser's thriving at Virginia, and it comes as no surprise.
Yeah, and when you have a guy like Jay Huff who gets so much attention, now the defense doesn't know what to do. All right, are we going to give up the three-point shot by Sam Hauser, or are we going to give up the dunk that Jay Huff had against Syracuse? He had 5 dunks because of it. Just when you have a great shooter and a big that can finish around the rim, it just puts the defense, just helpless. And that's what they have. They have a great system, a great 1-2 punch, and a point guard that can go in transition and get in the lane and make plays.
Okay, so I am a lover of the Big 12 Conference. I've said it on this podcast. I think they're the most qualified to win a national championship this year, because I love Baylor. Jarrett Butler would be my player of the week. I'll give that to you right now. I mean, he was fantastic last week for the Bears and continues to play at an All-American level.
Nice.
But I'm going to stay in the Big 12 for my team of the week and give it all to you in one pack. This is a conference that has a Baylor team who's outstanding, a Kansas team who's been a mixed bag and has a huge game against Tennessee. I don't know what to make of Tennessee lately. They beat Mississippi State, but
really
they were dreadful on the offensive end of the floor. They have lost back-to-back games. Well, Kansas has shown flaws outside of Marcus Garrett and Jalen Wilson. I'm not always sure what we're going to see from them on the offensive end of the floor, and their defense hasn't always made up for it. But by the same token, Texas Tech and West Virginia showed in their matchup how good they both are. I mean, Miles McBride and Mac McClung were going pound for pound, shot for shot.
I didn't want that game to freaking end.
I didn't want that game to end.
It was like an NCAA tournament type of game.
Yes.
That's college basketball. Play defense, take tough shots, and it was entertaining, especially because at that same time we were having a snowstorm here in Syracuse. So I was very excited to be entertained by.
Well, that's commonplace. What do you do when that game's not going on in Syracuse?
You know what?
You shovel? Do you have a snowblower?
I have a snowblower. That night I had to use the snowblower twice because it was just coming down. It was crazy. But
you're a girl, Dad, and I give you props. You have two girls, right?
I have 2 girls and
your wife. You were out there by yourself.
Well, So I have to get 3 jobs. But my player of the week is I'm going with Auburn, Sharif Cooper.
Oh, yeah. He's had a huge – yep.
28, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. He finally got cleared to play, sitting 12 games after the NCAA investigation. This kid is tough. He doesn't play like a freshman.
No.
I didn't even know he was a freshman until they said it on TV. He's 6 foot, but he plays like he's 6'9". He's the hard.
He ain't going to be a freshman for long. He's going to be an NBA player.
He's playing like he doesn't want to be in college too long. He's quick. He's fast. He plays in the half court, plays in transition. Great basketball IQ. He makes great plays in the half court. He knows how to read the play. He knows if he's passed to the big for the roll or he's going to the corner or the wing for the three-point shot. And on defense, he's a winner. He's going to get up in your face, passing lanes, deflections. He's going to turn you on defense. Auburn is 4-2 since he's been back. And you can tell he's just better than everyone. He was the best player on the court last night, and he was playing against juniors and seniors, and he was flat out the best player. He went to the free throw line like an NBA All-Star. He went to the free throw line 21 times.
Wow, that's exceptional. That's when you know that it's that type of a player, when you're going to the free throw line that many times. Yeah.
And he can't shoot. I mean, the past 6 games he's been in. So as he came back, he's 5 for 27 from the three-point line.
Wow.
Teams would go under, but he's so good. He's so fast. He still gets into the lane. He still finishes over trees. This kid can be – he may be probably the third best point guard in this college season.
So I'm going to give you my team of the week as well. You know what my conference of the week is? It's the Big 12 for the type of basketball they're playing. But I haven't even mentioned the team of the week. And that would be Oklahoma. Okay. Oh, yeah. And they've won 4 in a row. Davion Harmon has been a man on a mission. He's combined for 35 in their last 2 wins. Among these 4 wins in a row, you've got a win over Kansas and you've got a win over Texas. And you could counter to me and say Texas wasn't at full strength. They're going through COVID-19. Look, that's part of this season.
They didn't have their coach. That's huge.
They did not have their coach. And and there's no question that matters. But Oklahoma still went to Austin and they beat Texas. And now this weekend, a team that Austin Reeves and Brady Manick are their leaders. Davion Harmon is a sophomore who's coming on, picking up steam, part of that second-year process and growth. And Lon Kruger's teams, I love the way that they play defense. I think that there's a real technical side to the way that they play that's a lot of fun to watch if you're a college hoops junkie. So this weekend, they've got Alabama. And the game is in Oklahoma. The game is in Norman. This is a noon Eastern time tip. This game is on ESPN too. This game is ESPN quality. It's high-level quality. Alabama's been outstanding. They have not lost in the SEC. We've been talking about Shackelford and Petty. Rob Douster was sweating as they almost lost to Kentucky. I think Alabama's due for a loss. I do. I can smell it. And I think that Saturday is Oklahoma's chance to show the nation that they are more than just a team that beat Texas when Texas didn't have Shaka Smart. And they beat Kansas too. I mean, this Oklahoma team, like in the Big 12, we've been talking about Baylor as a national title contender. Texas Tech is a dark horse. You can never count out Kansas. West Virginia and Huggy Bear are probably going to be in the second weekend. And Oklahoma is, if they beat Alabama, and that's like your 4th or 5th or 6th best team in your league, are you kidding me? They have experience because Manick and Reeves know how to win. Reeves is a winner. He makes winning plays. I'm on the Sooners bandwagon. I am, and I think they're going to pull it off. I know it's a bit of maybe a bold prediction. I don't think so.
Yeah, but if they
That's
do,
what I'm seeing from the Sooners.
Pull it off. It's should they be ranked? I think they should after that.
Well, they are. They're ranked 24th, but they should climb. They should climb the poll. If they win that game, they should be top 15 in my book.
I agree with you. If they can beat Texas and then turn around and win this weekend, I think it's
Come on.
within, top 15.
Yeah. It's a fascinating conference that's deep, and I'm all in. I'm all in on the Big 12. I would be downright shocked if we don't see a Big 12 team in the Final Four, if not a second team that could make it. I mean, I love this league.
Yeah.
I think that it's so strong at the top, and I think it's deep at the top. I think that there's a bunch of teams on any given night that could win. Yeah. Really, really enjoy watching Big 12 basketball, and I'll tell you, I think that Oklahoma is a team that kind of flies under the radar. But I remember talking to people around the Big 12 earlier this season who said, look, when you have – in this sport, you have to have experience and you have to have dynamic scoring duos. And Oklahoma has that. And now with Davion Harmon, he's kind of that third wheel to who they are, but he's playing like a first guy. He's playing like an A type of player. He's playing at a really, really high level right now. Love the Sooners. I'm high on them.
Yeah, to your point, experience is key in everything. And when you have guys that know certain things, there's certain things that you learn as a freshman and a sophomore. And when you become juniors and seniors, the game seems to slow down for you as a player. You're not as nervous when the game starts. You know what plays to make. From the scouting report from the day before what you have to do defensively. And that's why teams who usually win are the teams who have the most experience, who have a great locker room, and they have guys who have been through the storm, who have been through the fire.
Interesting weekend ahead because you got that SEC Big 12 challenge. It's been more of a down year in the SEC, but Kentucky's going to get Texas. We'll see where Texas, without Shaka Smart, and without a couple of players, we'll see what happens there. But Kentucky's just been so inept on the offensive end of the floor late in games.
Yeah, they're not gonna. So I don't see Texas losing to Kentucky. I don't think Texas will lose back-to-back games. I think they're good enough to bounce back. They have those three guards that understand how important it is right now and this time to bounce back when you have a tough game like you had last night. But Kentucky, like we talked about off air, Kentucky's going to be good next year and the year afterwards. I think this year it's kind of like a pregame type of. So every game, Coach P is teaching as he's coaching. I've never seen a coach go out on the floor during the timeout and tell a guy what to do because they're so young, they're so unexperienced. He has to continue to teach and has to be patient with them. And I think they're going to use this year as motivation, as inspiration to come back next year to be better. But I don't see them. Obviously you want to finish the season off on a high note because you want to have something good to talk about. But I think they're going to chalk this season up and say, hey, you know what? Let's learn from this. Let's get better. And let's come back next year more polished, more experienced, and more driven to win every single night. But who's your coach of the week?
Well, that's a good question. Who is my coach of the week? I just think it's pretty remarkable that Villanova comes off a month without basketball and they go 2-0 and they beat Seton Hall and then they just drill Providence. Yeah. Now their game against UConn on Thursday is postponed, but I give Jay Wright credit where it's due, and I think that Villanova is in that top tier with Gonzaga and Baylor. I just don't think they've gotten the publicity or the press because they didn't play basketball for nearly a month. I think sometimes they're susceptible because they don't play on ESPN, and so the national narratives form and build. But I think that they're right there. They're one of the best teams in America. Jermaine Samuels, what he did, the senior for them last week was huge. Villanova is so good systematically. They know who they are and they know it so well that I think that in a COVID season has never meant more. And it's a testament to it. They beat a Seton Hall team that's playing pretty well. By the way, Seton Hall has a massive week as we do this podcast. Creighton and Villanova in the same week. You got to get one game. You got to get one, and you need your backcourt, guys like Miles Kale, Jared Roden, and you need Shavar Reynolds to be able to contribute. Sandro Mamukelashvili being the main guy, that's a given, but you've got to have those other guys contribute. But Jay Wright is so good at what he does, and it's almost like we've become immune to how great they are. Like we just have become used to seeing them near the top.
You get spoiled.
What's that?
You get spoiled because
yeah, you do, but you also get bored. Like in college basketball, we get bored with storylines. Like Villanova to some people is boring, but all they do is win. They win every year. They've won for the last 8 years. Nobody's won more than them. And when you haven't played basketball in a month and then you come back in the Big East, and it's 8 years removed. I know people say it's not the old Big East. This version of the Big East is still pretty doggone good. And they're going to have half their league in the tournament. So Villanova's been the standard. They've been the gold standard, and that's why I'll pick Jay Wright, and go with him.
Nah, man, Jay Wright and his staff, they're great. He actually recruited me coming out of college. Villanova was my second option, and but I'm very, very happy that I went to Syracuse. But Jay Wright and his staff, they have a great philosophy, great foundation. If you want to be a pro, you consider going to a school.
Yeah. And if you want to develop in college, they have the best of both worlds. They're able to develop college players, get a college experience, potentially, if you stay, get a degree from Villanova University, and get into the NBA. We've seen it with Mikal Bridges, who's shining, Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo, Jalen Brunson, who's found his role.
And it's so important,
Eric Paschal.
Understand, you picking the school that you're deciding to go to is very, very important. Not just while you're there, but after you're there also. Just having those networks and those type of people. But my coach of the week, I'm going to go with Anthony Grant from Dayton.
Okay. They came up with a good win.
Great win versus St. Louis. They beat them.
Coming off a pause. They were coming off a pause.
Yep. But Dayton is 9-4 overall, third in the A-10. I think this team can win 15 games to finish out the regular season. Jalen Crutcher led the team with 27 points, 5 for 9 from the three. Watson had 18 points. So this team, four out of 5 of these guys are juniors and seniors. They play with one freshman. They get great bench production, and they play hard. They play. Teams have a personality as their coach. And Coach Grant doesn't look like he plays around too much. So I'm gonna go with Coach Grant, and hopefully they can finish out the season on a high note. But the third in the A-10, maybe they could make it in the top 2, maybe number 1 in the A-10 by the season ends.
It's hard to believe the next time we're on, we're going to be in the month of February. We're going to be in money time. It does not feel like that in this sport. It still feels like we have some things that are unsolved, but I'm waiting. We've talked about Gonzaga Baylor so much. Doesn't it feel like it'd be so fitting to have that as your national championship game? You know what I mean? Like at this point?
Yeah. See, and here's my prediction. I think those teams, because they're playing so well right now, I think they're going to hit their peak too early. I think they're going to get
maybe, but then I haven't seen any signs that would indicate that, because they're so
one game. It takes
one bad night.
It takes one bad night and one off night, or somebody might get injured, or somebody might shoot bad from the 3-point line. You don't get the free throw line.
It's true. To your point, here's the one thing. That's the beauty of the NCAA tournament, is that even though we're going to walk into the NCAA tournament and say, yeah, Gonzaga and Baylor should make the Final Four, it wouldn't surprise me if one of them didn't. But that's the beauty of the tournament, is we see things happen all the time that make you say, how did that happen? And when you walk into something and you think and then it doesn't happen, it comes off as a rarity. But in the NCAA tournament, the rarity becomes commonality. And so we'll see.
still have to put the ball in
Get
the
the
basket.
money time.
Yeah, you still have to put the ball in the basket. You still have to play. You still have to compete. It doesn't matter what the predictions are or who picks what team to win. You still have to compete. You still have to find a way to win. And most college basketball teams, they're not going to give you a game. You're going to have to earn it, especially going in the NCAA tournament.
Mac McClung last week, Ron Harper Jr. this week. Thanks to Ron for joining us from New Jersey. Yeah, he was fantastic. And Rutgers is just a great story. We really appreciate him taking the time. You know, it's Thank Your SIDs week. Thank you, SIDs, all over college athletics. Thank you. Thank you for doing all that you do. From all of us at the Field of 68, I know I've got the privilege of working with all these great people throughout the college basketball season with interview requests and questions and thoughts and all kinds of stuff. Thank you. Sports information directors. It's a thankless task at times. They're behind the scenes. They got a lot of stuff on their plates, and they don't get enough credit for how much they do. Pete Moore at Syracuse is another great one, as you well know.
He is, man. Pete has been around since I've been in school, and he's still plugging along, pushing along.
Yep.
Probably the best in the business. So, to your point, those people who don't get noticed or don't get recognized, those are the people that are most important.
Yeah, they are. They really are. SIDs are they're God's gift in college athletics. They do everything. That does it for us here on Demetrius and a Splash of Fanta. You can follow Demetrius on Twitter at Nichols. Demetrius, follow him on Twitter. He's up to 1,200. Let's get that to 2,000 here soon.
Let's get it.
At Nichols Demetrius, I'm at John_Fanta. We are at the Field of 68. By the way, download the Locker Room app. Locker Room. We've got pre-games, post-games. You, the listeners, can join us and talk to us like it would be a sports talk radio station, except it's even more nonchalant. Get on the Locker Room app. Talk college hoops with us. I'm sure we'll do something here soon on Locker Room, maybe before or after a Syracuse game coming up, if not another game. I'd love to get your raw reaction.
Yeah, we can do that.
That's Demetrius and a Splash of Fanta. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Thanks to Ron Harper Jr. Thanks to Rob Douster, Jeff Goodman, our producer. Pranav, I'm John Fanta. Have a great college hoops weekend. Be good to people, and we'll talk to you next week.